So this is going to be the first of a podcast format that we're going to be returning to on a regular basis here with our Patreon pods all year long, which is we're going to go and essentially do a power rankings. But
first Thursday of every month,
yes,
you'll be doing a power rankings pod of all 30 teams. And John will be going 1 through 30, I guess 30 through 1, as we just mentioned. And every month we'll update the list.
Yes. And not, as you'll see in a bit, maybe not like traditional power rankings to a T, because as anybody who's listened to me for a while know, I think the exercise of like doing these lists is somewhat futile. So this will be more, as Andrew is seething right now,
because I think that's how lists run the world, and lists run the content world as well. So
for me, it's more about an opportunity to holistically look at the league and where teams generally are, and to have a conversation about some of the more interesting things that we're seeing, as opposed to, are the Knicks the 7th best team or the 9th best team?
But are the Knicks the 7th best team or the 9th best team, John? That matters. I literally just got back from the library to decide who's number 1 in my county. Okay.
Hey, good call. You'll find out soon enough, I guess. So we're going to go do that. But before we get to that, it is funny to me, though, how perception can so drastically alter from year to year. As I'm sitting here and speaking these words into this microphone, the Knicks are 5-2, and it feels dour. It feels like a down day. And last year they started 5-8. I suppose there's a possibility they could still start 5-8. I hope not. But
well, so I'll go a step further than you.
Yeah.
So because we're recording this before the Pacer game, there's a chance they lose it, which is why we can consider both possibilities. They win, and everybody, when you're listening to this, it's like, wow, you guys are talking about a time before we were happy again and we're 6-2, or they're 5-3. It's actually worse than you guys are suggesting, So what was the Knicks' big stretch to begin the season last year? They went 1-3, then they won 4 straight to go to 5-3. And we were like, oh my God, the Knicks are good. This is the greatest thing that's ever happened to us. The pandemic's over, rejoice, hallelujah.
Yeah.
Off of the same record that could exist if they lose to the Pacers tomorrow night, which in turn, the sky will be falling.
Yeah. No, it's kind of funny that way, but we'll if you're interested in more of our thoughts on the Knicks exclusively, tune into the regular KFS pod, where we're basically pumping out an episode a day between the post-game live streams and the normal shows, which we have some good ones this week. Anyway, let's get to the rest of the league. Just before we go, we'll start at the bottom, obviously. Before we go through it, it feels like we're 2 weeks in. I don't think another reason why lists, especially this time of year, are futile. I don't think we know anything really until 20 games, at least 15 games. Most teams have not yet played even half that. So I think that the teams in the league right now that have played, there have been a few teams that have played 7 games. A lot of teams have played 6 games. And so we're not even halfway to, a few teams have played 8 games. Excuse me, I stand corrected. We're not even halfway to that 15 game mark. So
I have a question. So
Sure.
you've been vocal about the 16 game mark as your first real checkpoint
for the Knicks, because of who those 16 games are against.
So
and I think that's before the schedule gets.
Is there an NBA first checkpoint that you usually hit when you first look at the standings and say, okay, this is now to consider, a legitimate sample size, Yeah.
I mean, I think I should know off the top of my head where teams will be at December. I think we need to get to December. I think it's at the very least 15 games, but I think by 20 games, you kind of know, what's up. That's why, I'm not even looking at lineup data yet. It's just like, why? Two games in one way or the other could completely evaporate something that seems like a trend. 15, 20 games. So we're halfway there. Does it mean we can't take anything from it? No, but it doesn't it's too early because, and again, to speak to what our conversation we just had was about, we're still at the point where one game or 2 games, 1 to 2 games can drastically alter your opinions on a team. And like, that's not going to be the case after 30 or 40 games.
Yeah. And it's why I respect and have full appreciation for the content places that do these power rankings once a week. And it's an exercise that when I was doing Final Score, I did it for football. And the exercise was way more about like seeing how things change week to week, like as a whole, like, oh my gosh, in week 1, Ryan Fitzpatrick was the MVP because he had a great week 1. And then continuing the trend to see how that race evolved going forward. I'm curious to see as we do that throughout the season, what these races will look like, what the power rankings will look like. It's literally, there's a podcast, a movie podcast called This Had Oscar Buzz, which talks about movies.
That's good.
Can you believe it that this actually had Oscar buzz looking back? Because throughout the Oscar season, you recalibrate leading up to a movie and then after a movie once you've seen it. And I think that similar spirit can be applied to what we do here. So I'm curious to see if we can look back and like, can you believe back in November we had like the Hornets as the second best team in the NBA, and then they're like a play-in team, you know?
Spoiler alert, I do not think the Hornets are the second best team in the NBA. Okay, you want us to get started at the bottom?
Let's do it. Start from the bottom. Now you're here.
What's also funny is we're recording this at 10:30 in the morning, and it looks like you're drinking like a very yellow, I don't know, like Chardonnay or something.
I will say this living with a woman will do this. This is what all our glasses look like. You get it. This is Red Bull. If anybody remembers from the live stream, that's my coffee. That's my morning pick me up. It's
so funny because to me, that's more degenerative than drinking Chardonnay.
Than drinking Chardonnay. Yes, listen, it's sugar free. If that helps my case at all,
it doesn't. Not to me. Not to someone. We don't have to get into my days working at a bar and doing way too many Jaeger bombs. Here's a team that should probably start doing more Jaeger bombs, and that's the Oklahoma City Thunder. So they are one of my. You know what? We'll really get into the nitty gritty. I'm going to have my bottom tier just be 2 teams. And it's going to be the Thunder and the Pistons. And it's interesting to me that Oklahoma City in some games still finds a way to look like a competent team. Like as we're recording this, they were winning against the Clippers in the fourth quarter in LA last night. They beat the Lakers earlier this season. And yet there are other games where you look at what they're doing and it's like, this is not an NBA team. And so they've been they've been confusing in that sense. And the Shai Gilgeous-Alexander of it all is utterly fascinating to me because as much as he is, whatever he is, he's 23 years old, right? Is somehow not on their timeline because their timeline is like 4 years from now or whatever it is.
Right.
I know, look, his extension, it either just kicked in or like whatever. Yeah, I think it just kicked in. That's something I'm curious about to watch moving forward.
Fully agreed on OKC and Detroit. Like they're 1-5 without Cade at time of recording. So You wonder if they'd still be 1-5 if Cade was there, but they're clearly not. They're clearly not investing anything in the season as far as rushing him back. I am a little surprised you don't have 2 other teams in this bottom tier.
So they're going to be in my next tier up, which is like, that's what I was deciding whether or not to include all 4 of these teams in the same tier or to separate them. And the other 2 teams, obviously the Rockets and the Magic. I can't put the Magic in this bottom tier because the Magic have won 2 games, one of which came against the Knicks.
I'll say I wasn't thinking about the Magic. There's another team that the Knicks have played that I thought you'd put below the Rockets and in this bottom tier with how bad they've been to start the season.
So yes, the Pelicans are 1-6. I don't know. So should we have a rule book for these rankings for these power rankings? Because like in my mind, we're not looking at the whole Pelicans team and that is skewing where I have them. Like for me, them being, I can't disassociate their yes, the team that we have seen probably deserves to be in the tier with the Rockets and the Magic. Although it sounds like you're more impressed with like one of the Rockets and the Magic than I am.
No. I think if the Pelicans, I would have the Pelicans below the Magic. I'll say that much. And I think the Pelicans, again, you're putting the Pistons as low as you are because we haven't seen Cade yet. This is as much of the sample size that we've seen. This is what the Pelicans have been. Here's next month, if Zion comes back and they win like 5 in a row, then they move up. But
here's the difference for me. Is what do you call it? The Cade Cunningham look, and we've seen some really good performances from rookies so far, as we will get into when we talk more up the rankings. I just never assume, I don't care what pick he is, I don't care how generational of a talent he is. I never assume a rookie is going to be a helpful NBA player, especially a rookie ball handler. And theoretically, Cade Cunningham is going to be running point for the Pistons. So like him not being there, is that probably hurting them? I guess. But like, here's the thing. I'm a big net ratings guy. Mm-hmm. The Thunder are negative 12.8, which they're in a class by themselves. Pistons are next worst at negative 10.7. Like, how is Cade really going to change that much? And I'm actually, quite frankly, I'm a little surprised. I thought they would be a little bit feistier based on how we saw them in preseason, but they just can't score the ball. Maybe Cade helps with that. But here's the thing. I know Zion would help with what the Pelicans are doing and not doing.
I didn't mean to say that it's the same thing to lose Cade Cunningham to Zion. I'm just simply saying, based off the 7 Pelicans games we've seen, that's one of the worst teams in the NBA. So much so that I put them below Orlando, who actually has had some pieces that have popped more than I thought they would so far this season.